What's going on, guys? We're doing this round 2 style. Last time microphones got turned off or something, so sorry about that. But we're going to talk about Johnnyboi Fusion Tournament, the wrap-up of Day 1, entering Day 2. Now, technically, they have started Day 2 already. We'll get into that a little bit, but we're going to just recap what happened in Day 1. We'll start with Europe, move over to North America, and yeah, let's just get right into it. I'll probably make this one a little bit quicker than the one that I had up previously because I've already said it all and I just want to get through it so you guys can watch the games and also just get recapped on Day 1 at the same time. So, let's go into Europe. Not too many surprises outside of the Stormtroopers so far who have made it through. Vitality as that 1 seed. Oxygen, they were the 5th seed. And honestly, I think they would have been higher over Mouse anyway. So I'm not surprised that Oxygen came out of that side. Samrock Gaming, honestly, probably should have been the 2 seed. So they also made it out. The only ones that really didn't were Dignitas on their side of the bracket were the Stormtroopers, the 18th seed. A team that was supposed to lose in their very first round made it through. So kudos to them to make it to the ultimate test of the 1v1, 2v2, and 3v3 brackets that will be in the finals with the same 8 teams across all. Now, this qualifier is kind of weird because it's crew battle format. Basically, you play a 1v1, a 2v2, and a 3v3 in the reverse order. So 3v3, 2v2, 1v1. Then whoever's losing in the series picks the next matchup. Then the other team picks game 5 if it goes to that. So if you have like a 1v1 specialist, sometimes that they can get the 3 and 4 back-to-back wins and then go into a game 5 and you just hope you take one of those games. But yeah, that's how it is. Like, I think the general strategy is if you have a really good 1v1 player, then you are looking very, very strong in this because, like, out of all game modes, 3v3 is the one that you can easily give up a game here or there because it's so low scoring. 2v2 is like in the middle where I think a lot of people are not sure exactly how good they are at 2v2s because a lot of people don't practice those. I feel like a lot of people practice 3s and 1s, and that's about it. And then the ones game, it's like, sure, there's kickoffs that can go one way or the other, but the games seem like they last forever. And in ones, the better player is going to win a higher percentage of their games than, say, the better 3v3 team. So I think a lot of people with 1v1 specialists will have a pretty good time here, which does beg the question of, like I heard Johnnyboi say this yesterday, of, well, by the end, we want to find out the best 3v3 team, the best 2v2 team, and the best 1v1. But I don't think that's actually the case because I think a lot of teams might get in based on only one of those merits, and then they're weaker in the other 2, while some other teams that could be really good, like it could be the opposite as well. We could have a really good 3v3 team, not very good at 2s and 1s, and they don't even make it. So I don't think that's generally the case, but hey, for the most part, this is all for fun, and we're all just having a good time. So I'm down with that. But let's get into it. So we'll go down Vitality's bracket. No surprise here. Vitality is the heavy favorites in this style. They actually did lose a game versus 5-Head, and that was a 2v2. K-Dop and Alpha lost, so kudos to 5-Head for at least getting a win there. No one else could, Magnifico or BDS, and honestly, Vitality is incredibly strong in all 3 game modes, so it's going to be very tough to beat them. Moving on, you got BDS beating out Solari. Now, this was a very close match, 2 overtimes in the 3v3 and the 2v2. Then, Exotic, he got the win in 1v1, but they weren't confident enough in that, so they went back to 2v2, which failed miserably for them. So Solari moves down, BDS moved up, but they lost to Vitality. One of the big dropouts is Mouse Sports. Mouse Sports, Speed was saying on a stream and stuff that they weren't really caring all that much for this tournament. And honestly, I think he might have even said a little bit too less. Like, they literally did not care at all. That they're playing Lethmir in 3s and 2s. In this series, he only played in 2s. But when you're playing an NA player that is not an RLCS player anymore, it's like, it seems a little questionable. Like 2s, maybe that works out. Like maybe Leth is a better 2s player than some of the others. That's fine. But my one huge grievance is when they play Triple Trouble and they don't even use speed in their 3v3. That's if this is correct. That just looks terrible. So like, for one thing, like, I get it. Like, a lot of people probably don't care too much about this tournament in terms of pros, but it's like there's nothing else on. And when you have fans of a team, you should give it your all, right? And, I think fans do appreciate it, even if it isn't, like, the most exciting tournament in terms of, like, prize pool or whatever. They want to see their favorite team, Mouse Sports in this case, give it their all, and they really didn't. Now, there could be because of maybe they're not keeping Arju, maybe there's some turbulence there to navigate, but they went out as one of the first teams out of those 8. So not a good look for Mouse Sports as that 4 seed. Veloce, though, made a run with basically not a 1v1 player on their team. Archie did get the win over Bluey here, but they kind of got hurt a little bit later where Luis, he took out Archie in back-to-back games when they were playing with Yermal. But Veloce, at least they're incredibly strong in their 3s and 2s games, so they were able to battle it out. They won in Game 5 overtime there. But it bit them at the end when they played Oxygen, where Oxygen, as soon as they won the first game, that 3v3, this series was over. And I think that's the only bad part about crew battles, is if there is a team that clearly outclasses in the ones category, then as soon as that team wins one other game, then it feels like the series is over. Even if Veloce, obviously they won both 2v2s, so hats off to them. But there was never a shot at the ones department. One thing I would like to see in future crew battles, I think you should start with ones, go 1s, 2s, 3s, because I think it leaves a little bit more up in the air. Maybe even 1s, 3s, 2s, because then it's very unlikely that the 2s games gets picked again by the losing squad. So you don't also have 2 back-to-back 1v1s, in my opinion. But I don't think it's a huge deal. But I just think it's like if Oxygen wins that game 1, like right here, they won in game 1 in overtime. This series is now over. So that's the only problem there. It kind of loses the intensity for the rest of the series. So maybe save the 3v3s and stuff like that for later. Put the ones first, because then if it is a guaranteed win, then that's over. Next up, Dignitas was another big loser here. They took out one of the Middle Eastern teams in a close series. They lost in the 2s, which they were not having a good time in 2s. They did win it back in game 4, but then they lost to Stormtroopers in 2v2, and then they even lost in 3v3 4-0. So not a great look for Dignitas as they fall down with Jorius now on that team. One thing I wanted to point out about what happened here with Oxygen and going to Astral, I did find it a little bit weird because I think Oxygen was, I can't remember if it was the 8th seed or the 11th seed, something like that. But when Astral joined the team, Johnnyboi moved them up to the 5th seed, but he didn't move down Dignitas, which I find a little bit surprising because if you're going to move up a team because they get a star player, you should probably drop the other team with the losing player. He did joke that he probably should have had Sandrock at number 2, and I honestly fully agree. Sandrock should have been the number 2 seed, but didn't matter for them. They still made it through. But Stormtroopers made it through with apparently Jack winning some key 1v1s versus Related Wave. A lot of aerial dribble bump plays. I did see those matchups a little bit, but Jack, he gets the wins, so good for them. But again, a little bit, maybe not fully 1v1 specialist, but apparently Jack proven that ones matter here, and he gets the wins there. He also, I think, won the one here versus Jorius. He did. And in their first round matchup, he won too. So looks like he went undefeated in his ones game. So good for him. Stormtroopers, kudos to them. They make it through as one of the top 4 teams. Next up, Sandrock Gaming. Their journey was a little bit weird. They almost lost in the first round, and I was surprised. No one was actually streaming their first game. But Aeriality beat them in 3v3 twice. So Sandrock Gaming having a little bit of hard times on their 3v3. They dominated in pretty much all the other games in their 2s and 1s. They played 2 1s here in games 3 and 5. And then they made quick work of Barca. They won in overtime in 3s with Seeb kind of just being in for Barca. And he's a good player, but he's not a player that I think Barca is going to pick up, obviously, in the long term. So not, again, a great look for Sandrock Gaming's 3v3 game, but they do get the win. And then they get a little bit of a bonus maybe, where Nameless actually took out Team Singularity, so they get to play Nameless here. And LeCallin had a little bit of a hard time for his 1v1 game, but he did get the win. And then 3v3 was chosen by Nameless because they did, once again, beat Sandrock Gaming in that first one. And Johnnyboi was saying that he's going to base a lot of the seeds on how people do in this part of the tournament. And I think that's kind of hard to do because for some seeds, like the 1 seed of a tournament, they're going to play easier people throughout. But for Samurai Gaming, this should definitely hurt their 3s seed for sure. Now, I don't know if he's going to rank like these 4 teams as top 4 in everything, or is he going to try and mix and match them? But Samurai Gaming, at least their 3s team, should fall pretty far down the line. We'll see how far that is. Probably depends how many RLCS teams make it. But they did not have a good 3v3 tournament so far. But they did make it through, and they did qualify. Nameless, they put up a fight. Demensa, he beat Scrub Killer in 1v1. He also beat OSM in 1v1 as well, who was the 1v1 carry for the Magnus, Tigre, and Alat team. And that clearly didn't work out there. But Nameless, they get a pretty good lower bracket for themselves. Now let's look down at the lower bracket. Games have started for the day in this round 2. But at the start of the day, there's 4 spots left. And every single spot, there's 5 teams fighting it out for 1 spot. So you can't move on this bracket anymore. This is where you are. And this is where we get to see what is hard and what is not. Like groups of death and so forth. So here we got Veloce, Team Singularity, and Barca left. And those are the teams I would think would have won their games. I think it will be Team Singularity versus Veloce. But Scrub's 1v1 game has not been looking all that great. He lost here as well. Team Singularity, I think, will win that because I think Veloce's 1v1 game is incredibly weak, which we saw when they played Oxygen, where Astral was just having freestyle fun, where they won 11-4 and then 9-3. So, yeah, Oxygen looked good. I don't think I mentioned them too much, but yeah, they look pretty good. So I think it's going to come down to Team Singularity versus Veloce. I think Team Singularity is going to make it through, personally. Then the next group is pretty much a group of death, I would say. You got Triple Trouble, Canyons, Dignitas, Flying Nunchucks, and Team BDS, or Flying Nuns. I don't even know what name they are right now. Let's see, Flying Nunchucks. But this is a pretty tough group here. Canyons are a solid team. Triple Trouble's pretty solid. I think they were seated like right in the middle here. Seated 20, but they're pretty solid as well. So I think that one's a really tough group for BDS to fall down into, and obviously Dignitas is there, but they didn't look that great on day 1. They don't really have a 1s player that's exceptional, and then their 2s game has been relatively weak. Now, if they pick up their 2s game, I think they have a decent shot, but we'll have to see. BDS as well, we got to see their 1s game with Monkey Moon didn't work out too well either, so, who knows? Maybe this is one of those with the weaker 1v1 squads coming out. Next up, you got Nameless, Yermos, Momentum, Travakine, and Celestial. So, not a lot of big names here. Nameless, obviously. But I think Nameless probably makes it out of here because probably Demensa, based on his 1v1 game from yesterday, will probably have a good time here. Nameless gets the benefit by taking out Team Singularity to have a pretty easy bracket, all things considered. And then, obviously, you got Endpoint, Solari, John McDonald's Happy Meal, Magnifico, and Sauce. So, Sauce is still alive. But they have a shot to make a comeback here, like OSM. He got the win in 1v1, but it wasn't easy as well for their lower bracket games. But, so this one's going to come down to probably Solari versus Endpoint. It could be Sauce. Like, Sauce could make a run, like, if OSM gets hot, and then all they have to do is win one of the 2v2 or 3v3 games versus Endpoint. But this one, I'm going to say Endpoint makes it out. Because I think Relating Waves, his 1v1 game isn't terrible and could steal a game somewhere in there. But there you go. That is Europe for today. So, again, you're trying to become one of the top 8 teams to go to the main event, which is single elim, 8 teams in 3 separate brackets, 1s, 2s, and 3s. So that is NA, or Europe for you. Let's move over to NA, where we got, I think, a little bit more of some upsets happening. Like G2 Esports, the number 1 seed, has not made it through just yet. Stromboli makes it through as, I believe, like the 10 seed. Where is Stromboli? Even further, 13th seed. Rogue makes it through as the 2 seed, Space Station as the 3 seed. These 2 teams incredibly solid going into the next round. 72 pin connector. Lion Blaze is just dominating right now in the 1v1 space, so it's going to be hard to take him down. but they obviously made it through. Let's go over what happened in their bracket so far. So G2 was one of the interesting stories of, like, they picked up a 1v1 main. A lot of the RLCS teams didn't. Some people thought that was bad. Some people thought that was smart. I'm more on the smart side. Like, you play by the rules of the tournament. If Johnny wants it this way, then why not? But they used Mile in a lot of the categories. They used him in 3s, 2s, and 1s in their first matchup, and they won all 3. They then used him in 2s and 1s in their next matchup. They won both of those, but then it backfired at the end where they used him again in 2s and 1s, and those were the only games they lost. They won both of their 3v3s, and then they lost in 2s and 1s. Both times Mile lost to Lion Blaze. So it kind of backfired on them a little bit, but I still think they'd be a very strong team going into their lower bracket games. The Sonics, they also lost. They don't really have a 1v1 player. Dapper hasn't played 1s in forever, and Lion Blaze just made quick work of them, 10-4. 15-4. He absolutely dominated them. And then it just comes down to, again, in that 2v2 setting, they lost. Sathu and Shock lost to Jacob and Lion Blaze, and that was that. That's the end of the tournament, basically, for them, or the end of the series there. Next up, Energy. Didn't look good at all throughout this. They lost a bunch of their 2v2 games, lost them both to Momentum. Garrett G actually won the 1v1 versus Mio in a very close game, and then like Energy wins in their 3v3, but then they lose another 2v2 and everything versus Stromboli, so they're down in the lower bracket. Stromboli sweeps out after going against the top South American team in 11s, where they win both 3v3s. They split on 3v3s, and then they won the 2v2s. They lost in the 1v1, where Bruno is in as their wildcard 1s player. But for 11s, a little bit disappointed. I think they wanted to go a little further in the upper bracket, but they still have a chance in the lowers. Another disappointing team, Avidity Esports, the Spring Series champions. They're already out of the tournament. They lost in the first round against United. Then they lost in the lower bracket as well versus SUP. So they are done already. United, big upset here, I would say. They took down Pittsburgh Knights. Pittsburgh Knights is trying out Alwaraz, but didn't really work out for them. They won 3s. Then they chose 3s again and lost in overtime to E United, while E United won the 2v2 barely, 1-0, and then they won the 1v1. Ajax versus AJ. I know AJ is pretty good at 1s. I didn't know how good Ajax was because I don't follow 1s incredibly closely, but looks like he did pretty well. But then it came down to Alpha Cat versus Ajax, and, well, 12-2. Stromboli dominating E United across the board. So hats off to them making it through. Now you move on. You got Rogue, one of the favorites in this type of setting as well, because their 3v3 seems to be picking up. Their 2v2 with Turnturo and First Killer is a very strong team, and then obviously First Killer in 1s is great as well. But they had some trouble. They played Plot Twist. They lost in 3v3. They lost in both 3v3s, and then they won across the 1v1s and the 2v2s that they had. Rogue actually chose the 2v2 versus the 1v1 because Tarako took First Killer the distance and went to overtime. So Plot Twist put up a big fight. Envy was one of those interesting squads throughout the day. We'll talk about them in a second. But Envy wins the first 2 games, 3s and 2s, and then they can't win it back after that. So Envy, they even chose 3v3, but they lost it there. So Rogue kind of got some redemption on their 3v3 squad by taking out a very good Envy team. So hats off to them. Very high scoring 1v1 game, 9-7, and then 10-5. So First Killer, that 1v1 expertise is really going to show there. Just 2 free wins almost, it seems like. But Atomic, he put up a fight, and Rogue makes it through. Space Station looks solid as well. We'll go back to Envy really quick. I thought they had a very interesting bracket. They had one of the few, I think, 1v1s that went the reverse to win Game 5 with Reddles versus Chronic. He lost the first time. He came back and won 5-4 in Game 5. And there was some banter going on by Reddles. I think it's on the subreddit somewhere. But Envy pulls that one out with 2 3v3 wins, which you would expect them to win those 3v3s. But again, it's a little bit harder. And then Reddles clutching out a 1v1 to get him to round 2. Then they play Affinity. And this time they win 3s, they lose 2s, they lose 1s. They win 3s again, like Envy, again, a very solid 3 scheme. And then 2s is chosen by Affinity, and Envy brings it back. And I believe this was Atomic and Reddles. I could be wrong here, but I thought I read that. So the first time it was Atomic and Miss, but then Envy made a swap, I think. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments below. But Envy pulling out 2 Game 5s. They haven't made it through yet because they lose another Game 5 there. A lot more Game 5s in NA than in Europe. And I expected more in Europe as well, but not as many. Next up, Space Station. Very solid team. Their 3s and 2s are like unmatched, basically, throughout this, at least on their side of the bracket. And they lost their 1v1s in Team Meteor versus Sharp. He had a good day as well to keep them close, but then Space Station, one of the few RLCS teams to choose 2v2 instead of 3v3, but they have such a good 2v2 squad, so they chose that, and they easily get the win there. But Team Meteor Sharp put up a lot of work here in Game 3. He actually lost this one to J-Rush, so he didn't have a perfect 1v1 day, but I believe in the first round versus Cloud9, he also won both of his 1v1 games to get them the win versus Cloud9. And that was because in 3s, well, Cloud9 lost it. And as soon as you lose 1, and if you don't have a 1 specialist, you're in trouble. Squishy put up a little bit of a fight when they played in their final game. It was very, very close compared to Gimmick, but didn't matter. Sharp took them both out. Same thing happened with Space Station, too. They swapped up players, Arsenal, then Sip versus Sharp, and it didn't work out either way. Sharp just taking out everyone. Cloud9, though, a big upset there to lose in round 1, and Charlotte Phoenix as well. They played in the lower bracket, and again, Cloud9 did their one game not great. 1 to Mike, beat Squishy 2 times in a row. But the problem is, Charlotte Phoenix as a team did not look good throughout this tournament. Getting Braziled, losing like crazy. So not great from them. So that's where we sit now, going into the lower bracket for today. Now, the games are going on right now while you're watching this. It'll be European games, and then once those are over, NA games continue with a bunch of different casters, so go check them out. But let's talk about what is left for NA in the lower bracket. E United is in the lower bracket with Flight, Divine, Mirage, and Normandy. And I think E United probably has a clear favorite there. It depends what Flight really does. But I think I would give it up to E United, unless the one's game coming out from Rapid, I believe it is better than Ajax. It's probably hard to tell, but I think it'll be one of those 2 teams. Who knows, though, that there's some other ones with Mirage coming in and stuff like that. But then you got 11s trying to make a run, the South American squad versus Affinity. Plot Twist and Sup all in this side, and then the big bad boss at the end is G2. I think G2 are heavy favorites here. So this one's going to be very tough to get out of. Then you got Team Meteor, who gets, you would hope, it'd be like, all right, we're going to get an easy side of the bracket. That's not the case at all. They got Pittsburgh Knights, Vision, NRG, and Double Taps. Pittsburgh Knights and NRG, both 2 strong 3v3 squads, obviously. NRG didn't look great in their 2s, and their 1s isn't all that fantastic. I think Meteor makes it out of this, honestly. So I think that they will come out as well. I'm saying maybe Flight on this one. And then finally, you got Sonics, Look at Curry, Jamal Jabbery, Cloud9, and Team Envy. The group of death right here, I would say. Team Envy, it depends how the ones go. I think Reddles would probably beat the Cloud9 1v1ers, and I don't think the Sonics will make it that far because they don't really have any 1v1 expertise over there. So I'm thinking it'll be Cloud9 versus Envy. It could be some Jamal Jabbery hopping in there as well. But I think... Honestly, I think Envy probably makes it out of this one as well, because I think that team is pretty solid, unless the 2s game propels Cloud9. But I don't think their 2s went all that well today. Let's see. In their first round, I guess it did. Yeah. So that's the thing. I think it comes down to the 2v2. Like, if Cloud9 wins both of those, that 3v3 matchup's going to be really, really important. That's if Reddles can take out Squishy in 1v1s, which I'm not sure. I think he could, but I could be wrong. So I think that one's interesting. You know what? I'm going to give this one to Cloud9. I'm going to have Cloud9 with the comeback in the 2v2 space. I think Envy obviously could compete in that 2v2 space, but I'm going to give it to Cloud9. I'm going to give it to Cloud9 as the run back from them, and they make it in. So that's it. That is your day 1 Fusion update. Sorry about the first video if you saw that, but now it is up here. Mic is not muted or no problems on this side. I've had a swap. OBS is out. So one thing I want to know, I haven't looked at Twitch Studio yet, and I was thinking about picking that up. Let me know if anyone has any any knowledge about Twitch Studio, like is it good, bad, whatever. But on that, go enjoy the games, and we'll see you next time.